We want peace and stability in the region, and I think that's what U.S. and of course the world want. But I think what is more dangerous is between the relations between China and U.S.
Hello and welcome back to The Focus. I'm your host, Dr. John Bruni. Today we're speaking with Dr. Alice Yang, a returning guest and assistant research fellow based in Taipei, Taiwan. 9 months ago, Alice and I spoke about Taiwan's identity, its calm but determined political culture, and the challenges it faces navigating the pressures of China, the United States, and its own international isolation. But the world has changed since those halcyon days. Trump 47 is now in the White House. Ukraine's war grinds on. US-China relations are in flux and the Indo-Pacific is on edge. Indeed, at the recent 2025 Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore on the 31st of May, US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth delivered a stark warning regarding China's intentions towards Taiwan. He asserted that China is actively preparing for a potential invasion of Taiwan, labeling the threat as real and could be imminent. Hegseth emphasized that any attempt by China to forcibly take Taiwan would have devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. Hegseth highlighted that the People's Liberation Army has been instructed to be ready for such an action by 2027, and it's training for it every day. He urged Indo-Pacific allies to increase their defense spending, suggesting targets of up to 5% of GDP to bolster deterrence against Chinese aggression. In response, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned Hegseth's remarks, warning the US not to play with fire over Taiwan and accusing Washington of using the Taiwan issue as leverage to contain China. Beijing reiterated its stance that Taiwan is an internal matter and criticized the US for citing conflict with the region. So today we ask, what does this new reality mean for Taiwan? And critically, can Taiwan survive it? Let's dive in. Alice, welcome back to The Focus.
Thank you, John. Thank you for inviting me again.
Alice, last time we spoke about the steadiness of Taiwan's political climate, but with President Trump back in office, does Taipei now find itself in a more uncertain position diplomatically?
On this point, I would say yes, because President Trump is a bit of a wild card. So everybody's a bit concerned, and it's a bit difficult to predict what he's doing. And it already has caused some damages. For example, Taiwanese dollars is now higher than usual. And so it's already very devastating for many of our industry. But we'll see. Yeah.
So are Taiwanese leaders feeling strategic whiplash from the reversals or the chaos of US policies, especially with regards to trade, arms sales, alliance messaging, or the Indo-Pacific more generally?
Yes, we are. It is actually being more difficult for us to make policies, and because I think it's the same with the entire world, because we don't really know what President Trump would do. For example, before he already has made a lot of cuts, and also affecting international organizations such as the UN and other places. And now Taiwan suffers the most at the trade and the currency issue.
So, there's this old saying that one can't control, what other people's reactions are, but one can control one's own responses. So in that vein, how has Taiwan's President Lee responded to the shift in Washington? I mean, has there been a recalibration of Taiwan's foreign and defense policies?
President Lai, you meant?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, now it's actually not changing much, because our stand is the same. Our position is the same. We want peace and stability in the region, and I think that's what US and of course the world want. But I think what is more dangerous is between the relations between China and US instead of Taiwan itself. Taiwan is just part of it, and it's also hard to say what Beijing is thinking right now. And but I think currently the US is more unpredictable than China. So Taiwan is we're still trying to survive in this moment. Yes.
So Alice, there's been a lot of controversy down here in Australia with regard to Pete Hegseth asking Australia to raise its percentage of GDP expenditure on defence from 2% to 3.5%. Has Hegseth been pushing Taiwan to increase its defence expenditure as well?
Yes, our defense spending has been increasing, and there are promises that we will get more weapons and also other systems. And at the same time, we are also developing our own, especially with this whole new AI technology. We also have new companies that try to make our own, and so we can also not be relying so much on the US.
How exactly do you see Taiwan do this? I mean, they've got a very robust aerospace industry. I think you've already got your own indigenous fighter planes. I mean, is there a program that looks at trying to increase the capacity of Taiwan as an island state to produce from within its defense industrial base, design and produce its own weaponry? And, at the moment, as we look at the wars that are going on around the world, there's been a lot of emphasis on drones. How does Taiwan see that as its cure-all for its defense purposes in this modern world?
Regarding drones, I would say it's just part of it. And because Taiwan has always been advocating and planning for a cemetery war, and because as everybody knows, Taiwan in comparison to China, we are very, very small, and it's even if we increase our defense spending, there's no way we can be really comparable to China. So we have to think about other ideas. And drones definitely is one thing, but I think it's just it's only one of the tools that we use in armed conflict. And what has been seen in Ukraine and Russian war, drones have, of course, played a big part, but it's just one part. There are also still other traditional methods which should be more concerning. But with an AI application in the military and operations, it might have other effects. But it's still in development, so it's also very hard for me to say how would Taiwan or the world will become. Yeah.
Mm. So, Alice, you previously noted that Taiwan's identity is tied to a peaceful and pragmatic approach. But with global tensions escalating in Ukraine and Gaza in the Red Sea, do you see that pragmatism hardening into something more urgent or more militarized?
Yes, I also think this year things has also been changing, and also with the entire AI, social media algorithm, and also with this more intense atmosphere, things are getting really, really more, how to say, more intense. So of course, now everybody we still want peace and stability, but there are more and more people that I think they are slightly wanted to do something more extreme. And of course, they want to defend our country, but maybe it's a little bit more dangerous than 1 year ago, I would say.
Mm. I think the last time we spoke, I raised this small documentary that came up on the local 60 Minutes here about Taiwan and about how various elements of society were preparing for the likely Chinese invasion. So there were people who were taking up arms, who were training with arms. I mean, is that now a feeling that's more intensified than it was 9 months ago? 9 months ago, after I spoke to you, everything seemed to have been exaggerated Western reports on what Taiwan is doing. And I don't doubt that that wasn't the case back then. But now that things have turned almost 360, are we looking at something that is a little bit more what that particular documentary was saying, that people are starting to prepare, they're trying to figure things out? Because as you say, things are uncertain. We don't know. I mean, I suppose we can always say we know what Trump is doing because he advertises it constantly. Even his unpredictability is advertised constantly. But Xi Jinping is a very different operator. You don't know what's going on. I mean, we've got some idea that he doesn't listen to his advisors, and those advisors he does listen to, if they give him information he doesn't like, they tend to not be around him. So, but that's very opaque. We really don't have a sense for what China's methodology is in all of this. But what we can say is that from a strategic perspective, the Chinese are, I suppose, in a way, better planners, more long-term planners. They have a plan. The Americans seem to be at the moment just floundering around looking for ways in which they can bolster people's militaries and maybe reduce their own military footprint. I mean, surely that's got to be having an effect on how Taiwan sees itself because it's just so uncertain. Yeah?
And yes, I agree with you. I think China, of course, there has a plan, and as you know, China's internal policies, they have this 5-year plan, 10 years plan, another 20 years planning. So you can see they have a lot of things that is, but because they are the regime makes them easier to make plans. It's a bit different. And regarding regarding our Taiwan ourselves, I would say if it's about mobilization, the common people like us, or even in academia, I would say it's not that much different. I am slightly more concerned about social media and those disinformation or operation, because now I don't think it's really about disinformation operations anymore. It's about there are some people they just bluntly saying things about reunification and such, and but in as far as I know, Chinese military, we are also having our plans and we are making preparations. Maybe they're a bit slow, but we are trying to do something. For example, I'm not sure if I've shared with this with you last year, but we are before we actually well, not really abolished but suspended our military tribunals. But now we plan to reinstate some of it. And of course, it won't be a violation of human rights or a basic principle in democracy, but there will be a military tribunal regarding disciplinary actions of our own military personnel. So we want to tighten up because because actually so far most Taiwanese people never really been in war, even those people in the high command. So and also for the normal soldiers, the life in the military is not that intense. So what I want to do is they want to make people, especially those soldiers, to be more aware, more disciplined, and also try to have better environment for the training program.
Actually, you raise a very good point here. You know, many of us in the West, we look at China and we kind of say, they haven't been involved in the war since 1979, and when they were involved in that war with Vietnam, they got thoroughly smacked. So we sit back and say, well, you know, the PLA hasn't been in a war. It's got a lot of stuff. It's cranking out warships like sausages. It looks all very scary, but in the end, it'll all come down to the quality of the West, the quality of the weaponry that we bring to the table. But speaking of this, there was a little stoush between India and Pakistan recently, and I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about this. Their headlines were screaming about how Pakistani J-10C variant, a variant of a Chinese fighter, a low-level variant at that, bested India's Rafale fighters, fighters that cost about $200 million per aircraft. And allegedly, the Indian Air Force chief have just said or confirmed that 3 of them were lost in their air-to-air engagement. So, I mean, this obviously must have huge concerns with regard to Taiwan and the defensibility, because if it is true to say that, lower level Chinese military technology in the hands of Pakistani pilots had bested the Indian Air Force, much of the fighting between likely fighting between Taiwan and China will be in the skies and it will be on the seas. So you'd be worried about the quality of their missiles, you'll be worried about the quality of their aircraft and warships. Are you concerned now?
Yes, of course, I'm not an expert in India, but I would say, of course, this also gives us some surprises. But on the other hand, firstly, there might be some disinformation coming on because we are not really there. I've seen very contradicting views and news, like who shot down who first, yeah, and also as to the number. But I can see what is really important is even if you have very good weapons, very good missiles and fire jet, it still depends on the who is actually operating them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like for example, maybe India they have very good weapons and fire jets, but the people who are commanding it, they are actually not that experienced, or their training is different. And also, there's always this issue about integration of the military systems. Like Taiwan itself, we have American systems, we have also from France, and we have our own. The integration is always an issue, and also the coordination between the army and navy and the air force. It's also a problem. So I think it's of course, it's a bit concerning that to see that China is very good, but maybe it's also because Pakistan, they are really good. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because, and also it also different when you actually have a very obvious purpose or goal that you want to achieve. And I think maybe for them, they have this, for them, it's something they have been preparing for a long time. And maybe they have better training, or their own system has been integrating better with the Chinese ones. So it's not necessarily China has super good weapons or fire jets. It's just the people are better in using them.
No,
But I
I
agree
do agree with
it
you.
is a concern. Yes.
Yes. Look, a couple of weeks ago, we spoke to an Indian expert, Professor Harshvi Pant, about this whole issue. And look, the one thing that didn't take the media's eye was the fact that the Indian Air Force pounded positions very close to Pakistani nuclear facilities, which shows that India still has sort of an aerial command over Pakistan. So yes, we can make a big deal about Chinese military technology in one particular area, air-to-air engagement, but that doesn't necessarily mean that India was completely on the back foot strategically. But I take your point about, inexperience in terms of both the command, probably also the pilots, and, the quality of the training that goes into making sure that the pilots know what they're doing as soon as the red balloon goes up. So yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, Alice. Now, on another topic entirely, what about the state of democracy in Taiwan at the moment? Because, Taiwan is a democracy. It's got people who believe that Taiwan should be independent from China. It's got people who don't mind the idea of linking up with China. You've got a whole bunch of different um, political beliefs about China. But if we're all heading towards a sort of warlike environment, surely there's going to have to be a crackdown in public pronouncements about where they stand on the whole China spectrum, right? Because, there's one thing to talk about Chinese unification in a time of absolute peace where there is no military threat. It's quite another thing when there is an impending military threat and you give voice to the idea that, you know what, it's not a bad idea to join up with China. So how does democracy now situate itself in this more conflictual environment? Yeah.
Yes, I would say we are still. I think I saw it's on the democracy index. Taiwan actually is higher than the U.S. So
No.
yeah, I'm trying to find a source. If I find, I'll send you
Yeah.
later.
Sure.
And so it actually makes what is inside Taiwan is a bit too liberal at the moment. And of course, from the government side, they will want to control certain things. And I think now it's actually also getting a little bit intense, and there are also some issues. But so of course, it actually silenced some people, and also on Facebook and other social media, you can also see that like my friends was split into three different groups. Most of them are still DPP supporters. Some are always they supported Ko Wen-je, who is now in custody, or he's not in jail yet, but basically and they think it's miscarriage of justice. And also there are still KMT supporters, or they just don't like DPP that much. So in Taiwan now, we have very obvious different colors, the green ones, the white ones, and the blue ones. But the red ones are still very, very small. I still haven't heard about anyone says they want to be united with China. But on the other hand, it's also a bit concerning that there are actually many Chinese people in Taiwan, especially they are spouses, and I think most of them they are really they shouldn't be an issue, and I think it's also unfair to assume they will be an issue. But maybe they just want to be influencer, or YouTuber, or they use TikTok and other social media. So there was actually a big causing a bit of a mayhem, that we had to send one woman back to China because she keeps spreading about how great the Chinese Communist Party is, and how important it is to being the reunification. And she's also a mother, and her husband is Taiwanese. So of course, many people, they said that, well, this is very, very unfair and even inhuman to separate mothers and children. But as a lawyer, I can say that if we are talking about from immigration, and also from the legal level, and also national security level, of course, the government authority has a right to deport her. But yeah, of course, people would think that this is might be unfair. So if you are Taiwanese, it's not an issue. But if you are a foreigner, or if you are a Chinese spouse, or Hong Kong, whatever, it is a bit dangerous. But I think that applies everywhere. In Europe, of course, and I think in Australia would be the same. You enjoy more rights if you are citizens.
Exactly right. Okay, so Alice, what is the lay of the land with regard to cybersecurity? I mean, here in Australia, we've been hit a number of times by quote unquote Chinese entities, or threats that have originated from China. Now, I mean, we're very far away from everything, and of course, the Chinese tend to view Australia as the soft underbelly to get to America. And I don't think that they have the same attitude with regard to Taiwan. Is cyber an issue between China and Taiwan? Is there something on the public record that you can identify as being a threat to Taiwan from China?
Yes, cybersecurity has always been an issue, and actually a few years ago, I think it was before COVID, the most important thing was how to enhance our cybersecurity and to identify risks. And also we face a lot of cyber attacks from China. Recently, nothing super serious, but it has always been one of our concerns, and we did a lot of simulation practices and exercises. And actually, a few years, I think every year, government has been saying that we have stopping or identifying cybersecurity risk from China and how many attacks. And a few years ago, they actually give a number, said that they stopped more than 90 something percent. But my other people I know that are cyber experts, that they said that how could you know if you have you said you stop, let's say you stop 99%, but how do you know there's only really 1% that has been, coming through, because you don't even know you have been attacked. And also now, for example, there's many an APT attacks, so you don't really know if they're already in your system. It might cause your effect 10 years later. We are not sure yet, but currently, I would say we are very experienced in dealing with them. So yeah, there will be cyber attack, and we will have cyber defense. So it's an ongoing process. Yeah.
PLAN warships have been regularly transgressing into Taiwanese waters. But with the Russians, we've seen that the Russians have been, attacking undersea infrastructure, whether it be oil and gas infrastructure or cutting undersea cables. Now, are you concerned with regard to the threat that PLAN ships or even their civilian commandeered vessels can be very close to undersea cables and, do some damage? Has that been an issue?
Yes, certainly. This is actually one of our top concerns in the past 2, 3 years, because there was a cable cut happen with Mazu, because Taiwan also have other islands. We have Jinmen, Mazu, and Penghu,
That's right.
and the big ones. And Jinmen and Mazu, they are actually they have very important strategic. They are very strategically important. So if there's a cable cut, it will be very of course, it will be very bad, and it's also very detrimental to the people who live on the island. There are actually many people on the island. So this has been every time we have conducted exercises or simulations, this has always been one of the most important issue.
Okay, you're listening to the Focus Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. John Bruni. We're speaking with Dr. Alice Yang in Taipei about Taiwan's shifting role in a world full of big power plays and rising tensions. If you're liking what you hear, make sure you follow us, rate the show, and share it with anyone who's interested in global affairs and sharp analysis. All right, let's get back into the conversation. Alice, some fear that under Trump 47, the US could cut a deal with China that undermines Taiwan's autonomy. Is this scenario being discussed seriously in strategic circles in Taipei?
I would say I'm not sure. I cannot say for sure, but I think this would be part of the in our future planning, because our government has been thinking about of different scenarios and how to deal with it. But for now, as far as I know, I'm not sure there is one. Yeah.
Okay, well, look, I mean, it's always a scary thought when you think that your great and powerful benefactor does a deal with your enemy and you're the one not coming to the party. I think
Yeah.
President Zelensky knows a thing or two about that. So I suspect that maybe people are kind of working that out. Whether or not it comes to any great satisfaction is anyone's guess, of course. So, with regard to building high-end semiconductor factories in the United States, is this threatening to diminish Taiwan's importance to global AI and therefore its global strategic significance? I mean, what is Taiwan to the West without its Silicon Shield?
Um, yes, we are. Of course, we are also a little bit concerned about that, because that would mean that US, they can survive on their own, and
Right.
Taiwan actually means a bit less to them. But now with the whole AI thing, like Nvidia, they already decided they will have their new office in Taipei City. And this was such a big thing. It was all over the news a few days ago. Yeah. So I think we will
Yeah.
still, from semiconductors, we might be the new AI town.
Okay. So, what's the mood in Taiwanese society today? I mean, we hear so much in the West, particularly in Australia, about what's happening, and it's all very alarmist. So, is Taiwanese society still relaxed or is it anxious?
I think we are still quite relaxed. Of course, the military is a bit different because from what we what we gather, things are more concerning. You also heard what the U.S. Minister of Defense have said in at the Shangri-La dialogue. They think tech might be imminent. But who know how long will imminent be? It might be 2 years in 2027, as they predicted. It might be 2035. And I would say Chinese people are still quite calm about it because we've been hearing the same for many years. But there are some concerns in Taiwan that I think one of the most important things is about energy, because we have abolished all of our nuclear power plants. And recently, Taiwan has been very, very hot. And also with we wanted to be the next AI town, so you will need even more energy. And without a nuclear power, there's not really any good way to solve this energy issue. And then if there would be more military exercises and the quarantine issue we have also discussed previously, and how to have this energy ships, this LNG ships, and how to have sustainable energy is would be one of the biggest issue in Taiwan. Yeah.
The nuclear infrastructure in Taiwan, has that been now completely and permanently scrapped, or is the infrastructure still there and it just needs a little bit of money, a bit of time, and you can reboot it?
This is actually a very political issue. So currently, Taiwan, we have three of them, and they were all abolished last month.
Hmm.
So now we are relying on completely on other methods. And many years ago, there should be a new, nice and new the nuclear power plant number 4, but it has been one of the main thing of the DPP policy when they are not in government. And so when they're actually in government, they had to cash out their promises. That is to abolish it permanently. So I think it's not really a good policy because we're still relying on number 1, 2, 3 power plants, and they're very old. And of course, I would say they're actually more dangerous. And of course, it's still possible to repair them, but I would say it would not look good for the DPP to the government. So I think they will not do that. But on the other hand, I think that we really are in need of other energy sources.
You've actually raised a very critical concern here because, of course, energy security is the bedrock for being able to defend yourself or any country defending themselves. And I think that
Mm,
in an interdependent world that we understood was the normal for the last 25 years, we don't have that anymore. And now the onus is really on us as people in other countries to be able to try to look after each other more so. I mean, look at the United States. It's America first, right? So all of the Trumpian policies is all about trying to bolster America. The rest of the world now find themselves in that unenviable situation where the supply chains are all breaking down. Countries are no longer able to depend on other countries in trade. And so therefore, countries have to be more insular and they have to start looking after their own citizenry because it does
mm,
reduce security risks for them in the long term. So this is a political issue I can understand, but is there going to be some sort of, I mean, or has anyone in the Taiwanese political sense put forward an idea that could increase and better Taiwan's energy security? Because I find that being dependent even on good old Australia for liquefied natural gas, that's a long way to come over the ocean.
mm.
And there's the South
Yes.
China Sea that stands, between
Mm.
you and us. So, those kind of tankers could be very much interdicted by the Chinese Navy, no problem at all. So that's got to be something that people are talking about, yeah.
Yes, and currently I don't think there's any very good there's no I personally think there's no better way than having nuclear power plants. As you said, we are heavily relying on LNG supplies from outside, and it will actually be very easy for China to block us if they really want. And setting aside China, there might be other incidents that might cause the LNG ships not coming through. Oh.
Mm. Yep.
And another thing is regarding our own electricity. It's also a very concerning issue, and I also not sure our government is really prepared of doing it. I think in the very event they will reinstate the nuclear power plant 1, 2, 3. I think that will be their last resort, but not yet.
Yeah, yeah. So if we were to look at Taiwan developing a porcupine strategy to defend themselves against China, one that's highly defensive, it's decentralized and very resilient, would the Taiwanese public support it, or are the people more apathetic to such moves?
It's also very hard to say. I think, of course, Taiwanese people, we want to defend our country, but at the same time, I also know many people they are also preparing in buying properties outside Taiwan, and in case of something really happen, I think many people will try to leave Taiwan, and you cannot really blame them because it's Ukraine is much bigger than us, and they have other ways to escape. But as Taiwan is such a small island in comparison to China, we have to think about many other ways. Yeah.
Alice, in a more optimistic sense, is there room for Taiwan to lead regional diplomacy, not as a target of Chinese aggression or a pawn of the Americans, but as a quiet sovereign stabilizer in Northeast Asia?
I personally would think that would be if I'm the president, that would be my goal. We should actually use our geopolitical background, because we are actually close to China, close to Japan, and also close to US. So strategically, I think our position is actually better than Hong Kong and even better than Singapore. But with the current environment, it's hard to say. But I think that Taiwan actually has many of the we are actually in a good position, but this would require some planning, and also it depends on how US is thinking.
All right, so you mentioned the US, so we go back to the US. If you had the ear of policymakers in Washington today, what would you say they most misunderstand about Taiwan's needs, its public, and its long-term strategy?
Well, I think what Taiwan wants, as I've also previously stated, we actually just we really want to have peace, and we have good economy. It will never be our intention to be war with China. But of course, US is doing this for most of its own advantages and for its own benefits. So I don't really think they care about what Taiwan wants. And I would say for them, it would be better that if things just stay as it is. But it's really hard for me to say. Yeah.
Alice, thank you for joining us again on The Focus.
Thank you so much. Thank you, John.
The future of Taiwan may rest not just on missiles or alliances, but on clarity of purpose, identity, and diplomacy. From Taiwan, that was Dr. Alice Yang. Thank you for joining me, John Bruni, for today's episode with Alice Yang. Check out the links in our show notes to learn more about Alice and connect with her on social media. Now on to questions for the audience. Should the US formally commit to defending Taiwan, or is strategic ambiguity still the best approach, and why? Do you believe Taiwan can maintain its democratic identity in the face of growing Chinese military and political pressure? How is Trump 47 affecting Taiwan's security? Is it a case of deterrence or of destabilization? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. It's a free way to support us. You can also subscribe to the podcast on the Auscast network, iTunes, and Spotify, where we'd appreciate your 5-star reviews. Do you have comments or questions about the podcast? Post them in the comments section on YouTube, and I'll do my best to respond to as many as I can. My thanks as ever to producer of The Focus, Neil Smart. Please stay connected with us on social media. Follow me on X at Bruni Doctor and follow The Focus on X at TheFocus_Sage. And don't forget Blue Sky on thefocuspodadl.bsky.social. From Adelaide, South Australia, you've been listening to The Focus.